We're not shy, so if you're thinking it, we'll make sure that we're saying it.
Yes, and today we're talking about Stonewall, which is a LGBTQ plus charity group, lobby group.
Yeah.
But I think that's how they describe themselves. Should the government be funding the controversial organisation? Because they have got themselves in hot water, and a lot of organisations are withdrawing from their diversity scheme. And this is following reports in the Times where it was revealed that hundreds of publicly funded bodies have been paying the group a total of £1 million in taxpayers' money, your money, for this diversity advice. And most of the money, as I mentioned there, has gone to this diversity champion scheme, which has been criticised for its stance on transgender rights.
Yes, well, look, we're joined now by British human rights campaigner, household name, an expert in this particular field, Peter Tatchell. Peter, thank you very much for joining us. Great to have someone of your stature on board for this discussion. Look, it's called the controversy. Clearly, this is a relatively controversial issue, certainly to some people anyway. Why are we paying £1 million of taxpayers' money? Why do we need Stonewall's advice on anything?
Well, first of all, I am not involved with Stonewall, but I am familiar with its work. And all the assessments that have been done by diversity training organizations say that Stonewall does very good work, very good value for money. And all it is simply trying to do is to implement the Equality Act of 2010, which is the law of the land, which is to ensure that LGBT plus people do not suffer harassment or discrimination in the workplace, that they feel their workplace is welcoming and supportive. None of this money goes on lobbying or any policy. It is simply about implementing the law of the land. And I think that's a very laudable thing to do.
Well, look, one of the issues that has definitely caused a controversy, as revealed by the Taxpayers Alliance, was that actually they highlighted an event here called Queering Children's Literature, and they were celebrating how much has been achieved in, quotes, queering children's and young adult literature. Why does there need to be a queering of young people's literature?
Well, of course, many young people grow up.
Sorry to interrupt, but just define, what does that actually mean? What does it really mean if you start queering children's literature?
Well, the purpose and intent behind that project is to ensure that school libraries and reading lists do not exclude books with LGBT plus themes or characters. We're not talking about sex, we're talking about romantic novels, we're talking about history books. And it is simply just to make sure that the library and lessons are inclusive, so that young LGBT plus kids growing up don't feel isolated and left out. And we know this is a big problem. A lot of young LGBT plus people in their early teens feel very anxious and even depressed, and some even suicidal about their sexual orientation. And therefore, I think it's absolutely correct that in accordance with Education Department guidelines, action should be taken to help stop that. So those kids don't feel bad about themselves, so they feel adjusted and happy and accepting of their sexuality and can get on with their lives.
Why are so many organisations then? Why have they pulled out of this diversity scheme? Because, for instance, Channel 4, Ofsted, the Cabinet Office, the UK's own equalities watchdog is no longer using the scheme, this diversity scheme that Stonewall run. I mean, if the Equality and Human Rights Commission isn't even using the scheme anymore, I mean, your argument is that all it's trying to do is enforce equality law. So how does that match up?
Well, out of the hundreds of organisations, about half a dozen have pulled out of the scheme. But that is quite normal. You know, organisations don't remain in the scheme forever. They remain in for a while until they get a proper green light that their policies are up to scratch and that they are addressing these issues. Once that's done, then organisations leave. But new ones are joining all the time. And I would say
Many have said it's not good value for money, though.
Well, not many, that's true. That's not true. A handful have said that. Most organisations think it is very good value for money, and I'll tell you why. We know from the research that's been done that if LGBT plus people feel included and welcome in the workplace, they are much more productive in their work. That their productivity is higher, and that benefits their employer. You know, when there is harassment or discrimination in the workplace, when LGBT plus people don't feel able to be comfortable and open about their sexuality, their productivity goes down. So that is a loss to the taxpayer. And if they can get these problems fixed, it's a gain to the taxpayer in terms of productivity. And I think, we want to ensure that everyone working for the government does do 100% of their work 100% of the time.
Do you not think that this is maybe a little bit of tokenism, perhaps, that people feel as though, actually, look, if we don't get Stonewall in, if we don't start talking about these things, then we might actually be branded as some kind of inherently homophobic organisation? Do you think they actually care about this stuff?
Well, I don't know of any evidence that that's the reason why organisations join. I've met lots of people in government departments and local authorities who've been part of the scheme, and they say it has really benefited their organisation and their LGBT plus employees. Some of them also said it's given them tips and ideas how to be more inclusive and welcoming for black and ethnic minority people, for elderly people, for people with disabilities, for women. So it's actually had a positive knock-on effect right across the board for equality. And I just think, as someone who once worked in a firm that was very homophobic, I didn't like it. I wasn't giving my best effort because I felt, abused or, neglected and, badly treated. And I know that when I've worked for firms that are LGBT plus inclusive, I've given it 110%. So that, I think it's just good for employers to have a good policy because it makes for a more productive and happier workplace environment.
Yeah, can I just ask as well, just veering slightly away from it, is London Pride, apparently they want to declare 2022 as the year of queer. I mean, why does queer need an entire year? We've got Pride Month, I think, haven't we, all the time? We've always got, the big celebrations that are there and festivals and stuff like that. Why on earth do we have to have a queer year?
Well, again, I'm not part of Pride in London, but I think the idea is to highlight the fact that this will be the 50th anniversary next year of the first ever Gay Pride parade in Britain, which I and about 30 other people helped organise. So it is a significant milestone in LGBT plus history, and we want to ramp up the fact that, in these last 50 years, great progress has been made. And I want to thank all your viewers who've been supportive of that change. Your support has really helped make a difference. And I think to celebrate the achievements on this 50th anniversary is a really positive thing.
Thank you very much, Peter. Great to have you on board there. Peter Tatchell, of course, a renowned LGBTQ plus campaigner, author and thinker as well. So fantastic stuff. Great to have Peter on board. That was, of course, the controversy there, just discussing why £1 million worth of taxpayers' money, your money, my money, Mercy's money, has been pumped into Stonewall, which is, of course, a pro-LGBTQ plus pressure group, essentially, to give diversity advice in the workplace.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.